I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. For those of you that may not know me, I'm Denny Scarborough, and I serve as president of the Jacoby Arts Center board. Tonight's topic will be, what is art? And we expect this to be a lively and informative discussion. We look to each and every one of you to help us at Jacoby to define our ongoing role as an active community participant. Our goal, as witnessed by tonight's forum, is to be responsive to your needs and to be an integral part of this community and its revitalization. Concerning the issue of a body art shop on Henry and Broadway, some of us have publicly expressed our individual viewpoints and not that of Jacoby Arts Center. The Jacoby Arts Center has not and will not take an official position in this matter as we seek to encourage inclusion and appreciation of all forms of artistic expression. Further, the opinions of tonight's panelists do not represent Jacoby Arts Center, even though we have one of our board members, Ron Abraham, participating in the panel. This leads us to the reason behind tonight's forum. We would like each of our panelists to have an opportunity to answer questions relating to how they define art and its role in our community. We specifically are not here to debate whether our city council should amend the C4 zoning to allow tattoo parlors in the city's downtown commercial district. We are here to explore how we perceive art. I suspect that many of you have passionate feelings about this issue. If not now, then my hope is that by the end of this discussion, you will have. Jacoby urges you to contact your alderman before the city council vote. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce another member of the Jacoby board. He is an attorney with a local law office and a guitarist who loves to play blues and jazz. Please welcome Will Buchanan.
Thank you, Denny. We're looking forward to hearing from you tonight, and we're looking forward to hearing from our panel. And I'll introduce our panelists. Jim Price is our moderator. Jim is a professor of art, history, and culture at Lewis and Clark, and in a former life, he was an art curator. Eric Dray is an adjunct professor at Principia College, my alma mater. He teaches at the Waldorf School, and he is a hybrid media artist. And I'm looking forward to finding out exactly what that is. Chris Hinkle is the owner of Grand Piasol Body Art and a tattoo artist. Meredith Elliott is an entrepreneur and artist, and the co-owner of the Milton Schoolhouse and Mavis Coffee. And if you've not been to Mavis, you need to go to Mavis. And on the end, closing for us tonight is Ron Abraham. Ron is a retired professor of music from SIUE. He's the director of the Great Rivers Choral Society. They're very talented. We've got about an hour and a half tonight. The first 30 minutes of our meeting tonight will be a panel discussion. Jim will moderate and ask questions to the panelists, and they'll give their answers. And then we'll open the floor to your comments. Please keep your comments brief so that we can hear from everyone who wishes to share. And please remember that this is a discussion, not a debate. There's no one right answer. There are many valid and helpful perspectives, and we want to hear them all. And we'll conclude tonight at 8:30. Without further ado, I'll give the mic to Jen. Please say a big thank you to our panelists.
Well, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here at the Jacoby Arts Center. Answering the question, what is art, is like asking the question, who is or or isn't done. So I think we should try, in a way, to kind of set some definitions. And in order to kind of stir the pot a little bit, I remember in graduate school, they always told me that art was a reconstruction of a perceived reality. So I'd like to hear from all of you about what your definition of art is and how you perceive this reality. So start with Derek, and we can kind of pass the back down and we can talk about that.
Sure. The thing that comes to mind as far as, like you said, asking the question, what is art, opens up. If you had passionate artists that had sort of a life vision that included jihad, there would be violence, so it really takes this place that is really close to home. And as you can see in the news, art is actually life and death. Like, it's not something that's just on the periphery, So we need to be asking this question, and we need to be having our own thought about what this question is. I think that is not something that's like on the periphery. So that's first what I want to say, is that art is central to everyone, whether we want to think it's not, it is. And it's our loss, and we're letting other people answer the question for us when we don't engage in that conversation. So I think it's all of our duties to engage in that conversation. So one of the things that I like to say is that art is discursive. And what I mean by that is art provokes conversation. I think art that works provokes conversation. I think another thing that I'd like to say about art is, and it goes back to the sense of that life without form is unseen. And so the form is the art. And if we're not artists in the way that we form life, we let dogma, we let institutions, we let Big Brother, we let other things prescribe the form. And so I feel like what it is our duty as artists and as people that engage in an artistic conversation is to provide a form that includes beauty, that includes goodness, that includes truth. We can have a whole conversation of what those three words mean, but to me, it's a humanizing form. So I'll leave it at art is a humanizing form.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Art to me is many different things at many different times. It's a way to convey feelings, emotions, attitude, whatever it is you want to make a statement with. Some last longer than others. What's great about a tattoo is that it's personal. It carries a lot of weight, a lot of power. It's got a lot more energy than, say, a T-shirt with a logo on it that you can wash, it fades, you can lose it, throw it away. You can buy it, sell it, trade it. Tattoo is something that you have with you till you die, and that's its greatest value is that it only stays with that owner. Nobody can take it away from you. You can't lose it. I don't know. It's all subjective. What you like is ultimately different than what everybody else likes. It's an individual, choice. It's about an individual's feelings, their wants, concerns. I don't know. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Meredith. I was thinking about this earlier because I knew that this was going to be one of those questions that came up. I I don't believe that art can be pinned down by a personal aesthetic. I believe that art is defined by the community from which it comes from, whether that be an Aboriginal tribe or the upper echelon of New York City. Art is always a reflection of the pride and the struggles and the ideals of the community that creates it. And personally, in this area, what I've seen with my shop and my friends and neighbors since I moved here, not to paint with a broad brush, but I don't know many of my friends and neighbors who would be the type to get in a tux and go to an opera opening. Now, our community is a lot of, good-hearted, blue-collar people with dirt under their fingernails who need an art that express that and who speak to them. I mean, your art should always, as a community, be a reflection of the people inside of it, which is one of the reasons why, in thinking about your shop and that sort of thing, I don't think we can define art or box it into any particular medium either. The good part about it is that it doesn't take a scholar or a historian or an artist themselves to appreciate basic things like line and form and skill. You can find that as much in an accomplished tattoo artist as you can in a muralist or a canvas painter, so I'm not really answering your question of what art is, but I definitely do not believe that it's limited by medium, and I believe that it's important that from tonight we decide as a community how we want art to represent us and how we want art to represent our friends and neighbors as well, to do them justice.
Right, so I think I agree with my fellow panelists up here that art is certainly a wide-ranging form, and it's difficult to define. I think we probably can all agree on that. When I think about it, I think of it as I try to be an artist myself, and I think that art might be defined as an expression of something that a person can't put into words. When I look at a painting or listen to a piece of music, I think that the artist that created that probably had an emotion, an expression, a thought that they just could not possibly put into our normal language. And so they created a painting or a play or a symphony or whatever the artwork might be to try to express that emotion. And as I said at the beginning, that can be a very wide-ranging thing. And it can be a very difficult thing to define, but I think that's where it springs from originally.
Okay, so in your definition, Meredith and Eric both brought up the idea of community, right? And that the community defines our art, we define our community, that kind of thing. So why don't you just kind of talk about what the role of the artist in the community should be and how you perceive that, and likewise your business, you can talk about the way in which you've used art to fit into the community. I'd like to hear about that.
Well, I think the first thing that kind of came to mind is that when he spoke about sort of things not being able to put into words, I think art is really that thing that can give solace, that can give comfort to a community. I think about some of these major events that have happened, or times in your life when you felt a lot of pain, and a song comes on and just meets you right there, and you just start crying. Or there's a particular event you've happened in your life, and you want to mark it like a child was born. You mark it you mark it literally here, right? So I think the art's purpose is because words can't really hold the magnitude of what it is to be alive. So we need other forms to figure out how to communicate the pain and power and the beauty of what it means to be alive. And that's why we need art. And I think each community has its own way of doing that. I think there's nothing better, more accessible, I should say, not nothing better, but there's nothing more accessible than, like a tattoo, for example, an immediate, visceral acknowledgement of something. There are obviously in infinite ways that you can manifest that solace, but that's what comes to mind.
Kind of forgot the wording on the question. If you could,
How should the artist best serve the community?
As far as like what I do with the tattooing and what I do with art, it's kind of a demand. People come in, they want certain things, be it memorials or commemorating a birth of a child or something like that. I feel like what we do in that aspect, we either give like closure or we celebrate with them their thoughts, ideas, feelings. I feel like I help provide that person time, maybe some retrospect later on. It's difficult to say. Like I said, it's completely individual. Everybody does it for their own unique, specific reasoning. All I can do is generalize it, and I feel like generalizing it kind of does it an injustice because there is deep sentiment, especially with tattooing. You can go and get a novelty tattoo, yeah. You can go spur of the moment and get something that means nothing. But the origin of tattooing, that's not the way. That's not how it was meant to be done. I think a lot of Western culture has influenced it to that. But the origins of tattooing, all cultures have had it within their history. And when they utilized tattooing, it was for something big. It was, coming to manhood or weddings or status or, something major. And the people that were around you could visually read your story on your body. They knew who you were. Surrounding villages, towns, or whatever could look at you and know that your character, that's who you are. The symbols mean things. They tell who you are, your life story. Nowadays, it's kind of a mixed bag with it. Everybody's kind of got, a couple novelty tattoos, and then they got some that have a deep-seated meaning to it. And, it all just comes down to choice on what people want.
I know Penny keeps introducing me to everyone as an artist, but my background's in economics. So forgive me while I kind of left-brain this conversation a little bit. But the artists in general have a really important role in communities, especially communities like there's this process, sometimes has a negative connotation, but as an economics background, I can think of it as neutral, called gentrification. It's this process that thousands and thousands of communities across the United States have already been through, are in different phases of, where you'll see a historic area fall into disrepair, usually ethnic groups move in or there's a high crime rate, property values will fall, and to the point where it begins to attract artists who don't have a lot of money. It's funny that artists who usually are lowest on the economic scale, they have the least amount of discretionary income, are the most important catalyst towards economic success in a community. What will happen is that artists that are attracted by vacant buildings they can squat in or whatever will start to take hold of these buildings. And even while these buildings are falling apart on the outside or riddled with graffiti or whatever, artists will, the really offbeat kind of artists will start to throw, shows or grungy band shows, that sort of thing. And it attracts another group of artists, the more hipster class that's a bit more palatable to the upper middle income society. So then you have, these kind of hipster class vegan businesses that, like offbeat clothing businesses or LGBT bookstores, or, really awesome tattoo shops that will make, they'll provide the buffer between sort of the grungy, derelict buildings that we have, and they'll be the buffer between that and the higher class people that want to come in and look cool for a weekend and then go back to their office jobs without having to actually live there. And the process continues on. Eventually, you'll get the higher-end art galleries that move in, then they'll build condos, and Starbucks will move in, and you've got this whole neighborhood. We've seen them all over in various stages in St. Louis. Cherokee ended at the grungy part of that, and places around Euclid and the Chess Club on the upper end of that, where you have the Starbucks already. It's this process that keeps going. Now, Alton's in this unique position because usually things have to get really, really bad before they change. But we've got such a small population and a small density in our population that we have an opportunity that maybe we don't have to let it be so bad if area businesses, landlords, and our local government decide that they're going to allow people like Chris, who are in that second phase, to get started before it gets really bad. Businesses like Chris's tattoo shop and others that I'm sure would be attracted to see that he was welcome in the area. They tend to attract tourism, they attract interest. People come from out of town because they're unique little shops and, oh, I got these cute little handmade shoes or these other weird little things. Just, we go to Cherokee Street and visit Firecracker Press for art for our own homes, things like that. So artists are essentially that buffer that start the whole process and are a catalyst for this whole process that creates economic growth. That's, in my mind, the most important role of artists as a whole. And we sort of fall into that category with the Milton Schoolhouse, having taken an abandoned and condemned structure and given spaces away for really, really inexpensively to get people on their feet. And we've seen just in our own microclimate of the schoolhouse remarkable success because of that. People feel welcome. People feel free to express themselves. We have businesses, I get inquiries probably 4 or 5 times a week that I can't accommodate people wanting to locate their business in my building because they like the atmosphere, because they like the rental rates. And I have to wonder why there isn't an opportunity elsewhere for this. Is it because the rent downtown is too expensive? Is it because other businesses have too high of an opinion of their properties to let people like Chris, who would provide an art shop for artists, who would provide a community for artists to meet at, in gallery space too for more alternative art. They're missing out on allowing that process to start to grow. So, yeah, that's what artists do in my mind. They're delivering.
Yeah, I think that's very good. And that's something that we here at Jacoby have been thinking about and talking about and working toward for quite a long time. I'll come back to that in just a second, but I think the original question was what can artists do to contribute to the community, or what can they do to help the community? And we struggle with that here at Jacoby also. We have for a long time. And I think it's important to decide what the people in the community want to see from an arts community. And here in the Alton Godfrey area, that's going to be significantly different than New York City or Chicago or Boston or places like that. So that's one of the reasons I'm so thrilled to see all of you here tonight, and I hope that we'll hear before the evening's over what all of you want to hear from our community and see from our arts community, so that we can provide it for you. It's our responsibility here, just speaking for Jacoby, to provide things that you want to see. It's our responsibility to make this a place that you want to come to. So we need to find out what the community wants and what the community needs. I want to speak for just a brief moment about what you were just saying about building an arts community in this part of downtown. That's something that we're very interested in. If you've ever been to Paducah, Kentucky, it's a city very similar to Alton. It's not that different. It's right on the river. It's an older town. They have developed an arts district in Paducah that has an arts center similar to what we have here, and they have a number of individual artists that have moved to Paducah simply because it's an atmosphere that they want to be in. They have a place to live, they have a place to work, they have a place to show their art. And the city did something as simple as changing the zoning district so that artists could live and have a business in the same building. Their arts district is a little different than what we have here because it's primarily small individual single-family homes. So quite often the artists will live in the back of the house, and then they'll have a little shop in the front. So they changed that zoning, and they also provided a small amount of money, about $2,500 or $3,000, to pay for artists to actually move to Paducah. They would pay a moving company to pack up all their stuff and bring them there. Now those are just two relatively simple things that really fostered a wonderful environment there. It's something that I think we could do here as well. It's just, that's just my personal thought throwing that out there. But the bigger issue is that having all of you here to express your opinions and to tell all of us that provide art what we can do to make this a vital living arts district. That's what we need to know. That's what we need to know from you so that we can do it.
Okay, we're supposed to open it up to questions in just a minute, but I'd like to let Chris talk about why tattoo is art and the ideal of art, and who are good tattoo artists and how you understand the world of body art. You're the expert. You're opening a shop here. Describe to us what that world is and what we need to know about it.
It's a lot. I put you on the spot. I'm sorry. I don't know. I may have a unique outlook on this, maybe not. I can't speak for all my peers. These are just my opinions on all of this. I don't know. I see tattooing is probably one of the oldest art forms on the planet. I mean, outside of cave drawings, we don't really have any kind of recorded history outside of cave drawings, mummies, icemen, the tattoos, and maybe some hieroglyphs and some other cultures. histories and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's just a recorded expression, recorded human expression that dates back, 5,500 plus years ago. With that being said, I mean, it should no doubt be considered an art form. What was the rest of the question?
Take us through the world of body art, what the ideal is, and how you perceive it from your perspective.
As current nowadays, within the last, I would say, 20 years, there's been so many advances with tattooing, from the types of people to the equipment being used, the techniques, you name it, it's different. And it's not just a touch different, it's a noticeable night-day difference with what's going on now versus then. People are a lot more responsible with tattooing as far as who gets them, how they get them. It's a lot more, the artists are a lot more educated. They strive to find new, better ways to apply tattoos. Always pushing the limits of what can be done with skin versus what you can't. The tattoos that they were doing 20 years ago are totally different than what they're doing now. Just say, realism as far as portraits and stuff like that. 20 years ago, you wouldn't have seen a color portrait, a full color portrait. I believe a lot of the artists that are in tattooing for the right reasons feel as caretakers to the industry. They make sure that what they do, what they say, that they leave tattooing in a good way. It's not just about, this is going to make me a quick buck. I'm going to get in, get out, and leave it where it's at, where I'm going to leave it. I think a lot of that's going to the wayside. I think a lot of the people out now really care about what they do and how they do it. And, it used to be a lot of people learning the equipment, not so much the artistic end of it. It was basically like you could trace a design and you could operate the machines while you were tattooing. Nowadays, it's a lot more about your art background, what you're doing. Are you actually doing other mediums outside of tattooing? Because we're finding out that it all correlates. It all can roll back around into what pays the bills. So,
All right, I think you can see that we've got a wide range of perspectives and views, and we've been intrigued by a lot of things that everybody's had to say. So why don't we open it up for questions? I'll kind of go around. If you would raise your hand, we'll take questions, and you can ask them. Corey?
Hey, my well, it's going to be one question, but it's to Ron.
There's two parts, right?
Two parts, yes. All right. I've been writing down everything all of you have been saying, so I'm going to reference this. Ron, you said that Jacoby wants to give the community what they want to see, correct? Well, sometimes art gives the community more what they need to see. I mean, look at Banksy's latest thing in Palestine, right? Do you think the Israelis wanted to see a kitten painted on some debris they bombed down? Not exactly. But it's what the community, and actually the world at large, kind of needed to see at the moment. So shouldn't an arts center be dedicated more to the preservation of art and every free expression than what a community might want to see, because I know a lot of music I want to listen to, and I know a lot of paintings I want to look at, but it's not necessarily what I'm going to like. It's not what I need to hear. And another question, you said that art is something that words, you cannot put into words, correct? That you said that actually in answer to the first question. But my question is, I mean, tattoos have words. I have a Kurt Vonnegut tattoo, and that guy entirely dealt in words. But he dealt in words in a way that most people cannot. You get a meaning from it. Just like in Islam, mosques have such beautiful calligraphy. So why should art be limited to things that aren't words, and why should art be limited to what a community wants to see? I mean, that's just it.
All right, two good questions. So I agree with you that I think the arts community does have a responsibility to show people what they need to see and not just what they want to see. I agree with you on that. I think there has to be a balancing act there, because just to be perfectly honest with you, if you're running an arts center, there has to be a bottom line. And in order to have this venue continue to operate, just to be perfectly honest with you, we have to have people come through the door. And so there has to be a balance there. There has to be a balance of what the artists want the community to see, and I'm with you on that. But there also has to be what the community will actually come and see. And I hate to be so mercenary about it, but it's a dollar and cents issue. Otherwise, and this is something we struggle with here all the time. You know, we want to be as totally inclusive as we possibly can be here, but we also have to exist. And if we're not here anymore, there's no point in being inclusive. Does that answer your question?
I kind of have a follow-up.
Okay.
I mean, can everyone hear me? All right, we don't need to press the mic. So my follow-up is, the questions were, what are art? I mean, that's a generalized question, and the answer you gave me is, what is art inside of Jacoby? Not what is art in the main. I understand that Jacoby could not present the things that Chris does in his business that's already, is that off of Homer Adams? Yeah, and you run that quite successfully. You have the bottom line in, you make the money.
Correct.
Obviously, you stay open. But the questions were involving what is art outside in the general world, and you gave me an answer, what is art inside of Jacoby.
Right. And I guess that's because it's, you know, at this point where I'm at personally right now, that's kind of my view.
Okay.
Now, if I were to give you a general view, what is art? Speaking as a musician, I would say what is not art? Mozart is art. Beethoven is art. Led Zeppelin is art. Nirvana is art. Who's to say what's not? Certainly not me. But I'm just kind of coming at this tonight just as a board member of Jacoby, and Jacoby has been very near and dear to me. So I have to approach it that way as a board member. But I would certainly not limit art. I would not say ever what Jacoby decides to display or to perform is the only relevant art. I would never say that. And you had a second part to your question, which is slipped away from me.
Words. Oh yeah, words.
Oh, about the words.
Thanks. You remembered my question.
Yeah. Well, boy, you got a couple of good questions. Man, all right.
It's my job.
Boy, that's a tough one. So, yes, an artist certainly can put into words. I mean, if you think of a poet who is absolutely an artist, certainly they can put into words what they're feeling, because that's their art form. I guess what I was speaking more to the visual artists or maybe musicians that do not incorporate lyrics into their music, that type of thing. I guess that's more what I was thinking of, that they portray what they're thinking and what they're feeling and what their thoughts and words are through that venue. So, very good questions, and this is something I think is important for all of you to know. I'm going to shut up here in a minute, but I just want to reiterate that art centers are under duress right now. There's no state money. There's no federal money. There's very little private money. We have to figure out how we are going to survive. And if we're not here at all, which a lot of you know, a year ago, we came within a whisper of locking the doors here and never opening them again. So if we're not here, then what will the artists in this Riverbend area, where will they have to display? So we have to have a balance.
Other questions?
First, I just wanted to say that I love what you said about what is not art, because every artist's creation, some of it might be stuff that I love, and some might be stuff that I hate, and a lot of it's going to be in between, but who's to say, that it's not art, so I love that. But for Chris, I had a question for you. I would think that tattoo artists and other mediums would have extra regulations on them, like from the state or maybe from the feds, I don't know, but healthcare regulations, age restrictions on who can get a tattoo. Is there stuff like that you have to deal with that other artists don't?
Yeah, correct. There's I'm loud to begin with.
Good enough.
Yeah, we are regulated by the county, the state. Yeah, there's a lot to tattooing that I consider probably one of the hardest art forms to learn. Basically, because you have to go through these additional steps. You have to have a proper environment, which you want to try to have as close to asepsis as possible. You want everything disinfected, everything's got to be clean, it's got to be a controlled environment. That's just the start. And we can go on and on and on with things that you have to do just to create that environment. And then, that's before you even sit down with the client to even discuss what it is that they're wanting on the body, which can be difficult at times. A lot of people come in, they're excited. They got like 50 things in their head that they want all in a tattoo the size of a softball. And every one of them things has the greatest meaning on the planet, so you can't cut in and out. So then you gotta have a compromise. You whittle it down. Tattooing, rule of thumb, less is more. So you wanna try to knock it down to where you can have a nice background, middle ground, foreground, something that is aesthetic to the part of the body that you're putting it on. So you have to know the anatomy of the body, along with you got to be mechanically inclined. You got to be able to operate and work on your own equipment. Just because they're made out of metal doesn't mean that they hold a tune. So you definitely have to be able to adjust on the fly if something happens mid-tattoo. Hopefully you have enough knowledge to keep your tattoo going. And then, then outside of you just doing the tattoo, there's a whole other factor that the person's got to take it home, and then they have to care for it, which is like 2 weeks of you not being there watching it. It's up to them to make sure that your artwork comes back in the same condition as it left, but healed. So that's another factor in it. It's a difficult form. There's lots of things that go into it. It's not like, oh, I'm going to oil paint today. Break the easel out, put a canvas on there, and start sliding paint.
So is there an age restriction? If
An
like
age
a
restriction?
12-year-old came in and said,
Yes. In Illinois, the age is 18. As far as like piercing and stuff goes, basically, I leave that up to my piercers. And a lot of that depends on anatomy, not so much age, but you gotta have the proper anatomy to be able to hold a piercing. So, you know, basic ear piercings and stuff like that, if it's a youth, I leave that up to the parents and my piercers. I trust their judgment. You know, they want good end results, not problems throughout the whole process. So.
and about like a canvas artist could paint anything they wanted on a canvas, are you restricted with tattoos? Like with personalized license plates, they can't put certain words. Can you put anything on a tattoo?
There are fundamentals with tattooing that you can bend depending on the circumstance, the person, the piece of artwork, but some things have to be done in a certain way to ensure the longevity of your artwork. You can do anything and have it leave out looking nice, but that's not to say that when it heals, it's going to look the same way, or that 5, 10, 20 years down the road, it's going to look the same as when it left.
Yes.
Hi, I don't want to pick on you, but I have a question for you. So you mentioned the bottom line and Jacoby being in duress, as in a lot of art centers are around the country right now. Hypothetically, not you on the board of Jacoby, but hypothetically, do you believe, first of all, do you know the revenue of tattoo shops? Does anyone know?
I really don't.
Okay. Typical tattoo artists charge anywhere from $100 to $200 an hour. So it's not always those blue-collar people. Sometimes a lot of white-collar people, too. Do you think that people coming into this community with those types of funds could help be a catalyst for somewhere like Jacoby?
Hey, thanks for putting me on the spot. No problem here. As an artist, not as
I should have been an attorney.
the answer to your question is yes.
That's good.
And I'll just be totally honest with you. Denny's looking at me like,
Sorry.
you know, we all decided we were going to be honest here tonight, right? And I'm the old guy on the panel here, so I can get away with it. A new business in town will create more revenue, it'll create more taxes, it'll create more activity down here in this part of town. I think those are all good things. And Chris, I'll just tell you the truth from what I've heard from other people my age, and they're just worried about the image of a tattoo parlor on what is considered to be one of the main pathways into downtown. And I think, and again, I'm speaking for my generation, I think what they're concerned about is, I'll just say it, you know, I mean, the loitering, motorcycles, possible crime, you know, all that kind of thing. Now the hands are shooting up.
Now we have questions.
Yeah, I knew I'd generate something with this. But I'm just telling you, this is what people of my generation, I think, are concerned about. And probably even more than that, the concern that other businesses that may desire to relocate down here would be turned off or turned away by the fact that there's a tattoo parlor there. So, now I've put it out on the table. Why don't you just address that and tell us what you feel about it?
Actually, I'm glad that there was concern because there needs to be with this industry. Not everybody should be allowed a tattoo shop. Not everybody should be able to, just open a storefront and do what it is we do. We do art, but it's in a clinical setting. Like my shop, as far as the cleanliness, the sterileness, or asepsis, or whatever you want to call is the biggest end of it. Like, bar none, before anything, everything has got to be, tip top. It's got to be exactly by the book. Like, there's no cutting corners, there's no shortcuts, there's no, I'll get it next time, there's none of that. Like, it has to be done every time. It's not, hurry, 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 I got somebody coming in. No, let's take your time. They can wait. This is the proper way it needs to be done, and there's no exceptions for it. I understand the concerns, but I also feel that I have a 7-year track record with the city of Alton. And I have put out that anyone with any concerns of anything are welcome to come to my current business, and I'll give you a personal tour of what's going on. I'm not asking for anything for free. I'm not expecting anything. I did plan to go through a process of approval to do this. I've been working on this for like 7 years since I've opened my business in Alton. It was brought to my attention at the time of opening that downtown would never happen, regardless. So, I basically sat down, asked myself, how could that be? Looked at my industry and understood some of the concerns, and I personally addressed them, and I orchestrated my shop to a fashion to where the stereotypes are the furthest thing from the truth with my shop. So,
Eric, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I got this email from an invitation from Penny to come and speak here. When I looked at the topic and I read what this was about, I was sort of confused. And I was just confused that I know this area, and I was confused why. It just didn't make any sense to me. I'm not from Alton. I don't purport to know Alton that well. I've worked here, done things here. I've done some projects here. I've worked at Pren. I went to Pren. But when I am here in this area, I think there are more concerns that I have about other establishments that already exist here. And I think what the fear is change. I think people have their habits. And when you try to push those, change people's way of thinking about people, changing stereotypes, changing paradigms, that's uncomfortable. And I think a lot of what you see down here is people wanting to preserve habits and habits of the way we think, and some of those habits are unhealthy. I don't necessarily have any judgment with the drink, or there's nothing there, but definitely, unequivocally can tell you, drinking alcohol is far more negative than getting a tattoo. Like, unequivocally, if you got a bad habit of drinking, it's much worse for you and your family than a bad habit with tattooing. Like, I'm not, it's just an objective thing, and yet we have all these establishments that just do this, and we're just mindless to it, like, that's just okay. Like, you're not looking at it from a real objective kind of place, I think, because, I think bars and drinking have their place. I'm not saying to get rid of them, but I'm just saying, it's not, the other thing I think is somehow tattooing gets lumped in with like strip clubs and this whole sort of thing, like it's like this world that's going to all of a sudden unleash on ourselves. And, it's like art, like those other people, like there might be brown people that might be coming up. I don't know, like we need to just, I'm sorry to go there, but I just feel like part of the necessity is that I think art and tattooing and all of these things, we are moving consciousness forward. And I think we are moving us in a place that's able to look at things from an objective standpoint and say, like, look, this has this effect, this has this effect, and not get caught up in bad habits and bad habitual thinking. And I think art, if I want to go back to the art thing, I think art is a way of kind of helping us to see ourselves better and to see us and help us reflect. And that's uncomfortable for a lot of people. They don't want to see themselves in the mirror. And I think art, when it does its job, it shines a mirror.
You wanted to ask a question?
I actually have two quick questions directed at Chris and Mr. Joe here. I represent 165 people that are photographers in the RiverBend area, the Alton photography group, or on Facebook. My name is James Thompson, by the way. Chris, I'm very excited to see what you're trying to do here in downtown, not only for the tattooing, but also for the fact that you're going to bring another medium for us to be able to buy art supplies. A lot of us are artists. A lot of us I have to say, from the 165 people that I manage and curate for, a great number of them have tattoos or piercings. They are all behind you, even those who do not. And I don't have a piercing or tattoo anywhere. I'm excited about it too, because I've seen your artwork. I'm very proud of what you do, and I think that it would be a great asset here. What I'd like to ask you in particular is, what are you going to do for the art community in general? Will it simply be canvases and painting material? Will it be media that we can use in here for, say, clay pots, etc.? Will you have something similar to, I don't know if you remember the old Bader's store in St. Louis, or perhaps you're familiar with Dick Blick or anything like that. And I realize that money is going to be a factor for what you do. The artists that you're going to represent with your business, who will be affected by that? And also, for you, sir, I've dealt with the old Jacoby. And I'm not throwing this at you in general or you, but I, again, represent 165 people. Several of them have come to you trying to represent themselves, trying to get murals or work on the wall. In fact, I have one in particular that's getting ready to pick up her work. Who's being charged a 40% commission. Now, as a curator, I generally try to get 25%. Would you be willing to address that issue in particular about lowering commission rates, being able to work with truly starving artists, I'm one of them, and being able to bring our work into Jacoby and to bring more business your way? I realize, as you said, Jacoby is working on a monetary deficit. And as artists, we should all band together and try to help you out. But we also want to help the whole community, the whole of Broadway. And I would love to see that happen, starting with Jacoby. Could you address that for me, please?
I'm going to go Chris first with the art supply, you know.
Yeah, when, as far as like the artist supply goes, basically my ideal for that is I definitely don't want to carry like professional working artist grade materials. I'm not really interested in things that you can pick up at, you know, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, stuff like that. Along with that, basically, I don't have it in the store. I will definitely order it. Along with that, with me starting the art supply with the brick and mortar locally, it's also going to be an online store that I'm actually going to heavily promote within my own industry so that it'll actually be an online business as well.
Right, I understand exactly what you're talking about, and I can't speak for, even though I've been with Jacoby for a couple of years, I know what you're talking about. It goes back a long ways. What his primary concern is that Jacoby charges 40% commission on what we sell in our gallery out here. And I have to say, I know you said, you know, you as a curator yourself generally do 25%, but as a rule, this is about what art galleries charge, is about 40% commission. If you went to various galleries in St. Louis or things, and I feel your pain. I know it's a lot, but it's the way that we survive, going back to what I was talking about with just dollars and cents. Now, here's something to think about, and this is just my personal opinion, but I would go to bat for you on this. We have an artist shop right out here, which is it's just basically it's a gift shop where we sell artists' wares, paintings, sculptures, et cetera, if you would like to display some of your things in that artist shop, and if they sell well, I think that we could negotiate with you on the commission. That's just me saying that, that's not the board. But it's just like anything else, it's supply and demand. If we get an artist in here that's very popular and we sell a lot of their works, that's good for everybody. So, you know, I'd be happy to talk to you about that, or you can talk to Gene King, who actually runs the artist shop.
And I do understand your point. You know, 25% is without a brick and mortar store. Again, we are completely digital. We do a lot of work with Amazon, with Etsy, with Shopify to be able to move artwork from this region. So again, I see his point, but I would like to bring that a little bit closer to a starving artist's perspective.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anybody here at Jacoby that wouldn't be willing to sit down with you and talk to you about how we can display your wares and that we can still stay alive.
Understood. Thank you.
Speaking of supply and demand, was it last year, 2 years ago, when Jacoby was in financial duress, about a year ago, they leaned very heavily on the idea that you mentioned that if Jacoby fell, there would be no arts community in Alton, and I don't believe that is true. That is not true at all. It's sort of like prohibition. If people want something, they're going to be able to find it somewhere. And I think that we need to stop looking at Jacoby and art centers and nonprofits as the only way for arts to thrive in a community. We need to look at small business owners like Chris or like Mavis who respond to an art community because we have a responsibility with employees and such to see every dollar make more dollars so we can pay people. For instance, addressing commission and such, I own a coffee shop. People have asked me all the time, you know, will you sell my art here, will you sell my jewelry here, will you sell everything that I make here? Because we have thousands of people coming through the shop every week, about 3,000. And I didn't want to display wall art because the art that's curated in my shop is part of my brand and a lot of it's from my private collection. But because there was so much pressure from a community to a business owner, and from artist community to a business owner to do this. Mavis just this week installed Art Track in a big long white hallway we have outside of our shop. It goes right down to the restroom, right down to other businesses in that hallway. And because, my profit is made from selling y'all coffee and ice mochas, not from selling people's works, I have an interest in people that fit into the brand and the culture that I'm trying to create with my coffee shop. So instead of going with a commission-based sales program, we decided that you could rent the front hall with more traffic, which is about 26 linear feet of track, enough for 10 to 12 works for $50, or you can rent the back hall for $25 a month, that we wouldn't take any commission, that you could sell it yourself, you could meet with people that were interested, put your phone number on it, take cash. If you wanted the shop to collect money for it, we would just charge what we have to for sales tax, which is about 10%, 8.75% is sales tax. The rest of it is credit card processing fees. I'm telling you this as a business owner, that when there's enough pressure from a group that supports your business, you're gonna find a way to make them happy. So, it's a big financial decision because, Art Track and professional Art Track's expensive. It costs about $800. But I'm looking at it from every dollar. How many people does it take to display? For how long before I make my money back? How does it make us look to the people that come through here? How does it make artists that support us feel when they see and they sell their works on our walls? Now they can sell it at a rate that can get it into the hands of more people because we're not charging so much. And it's sort of a, you give me something, I give you something type of exchange. You're going to get that with a business. And as artists, I know a lot of you here in the audience are, if you start approaching businesses that you think align with the brand or have the clientele that would appreciate your work, talk to them, start pressuring them, bother them. They will eventually cave if they find that there's going to be some sort of incentive for them in the end. For me, it's promoting our brand and making my customers happy. So art galleries are not the only place. There's going to be a place for artists no matter what happens. Artists will find a way, entrepreneurs will find a way.
All the artists need to go rid of that space. That's the deal of the century, I think. Okay?
So just a couple of thoughts. I think that 40%, totally normal. I would have actually no objection to that. I've never shown in a gallery that didn't charge 40 to 50%. I mean, that's how you control quality too. But the real question is, for Chris again, we share a mutual acquaintance. You might not know that, but Hero Prentice is my student.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm fascinated by the things that he's told me in this last seminar about the process of learning to become a tattoo artist. It was very similar to the process of becoming a potter in Japan in the early crafts and arts movement. I don't know if you would know about that.
I'm fond of the Japanese culture.
Well, let's talk about tattooing, because I don't want to get into pottery. That's a different thing.
I like a good bit of Japanese culture. Like I feel like there's a lot to learn with that. So.
Well, could you tell us about the stages one has to go through to become a tattoo artist?
That depends on the person that you're trying to I guess, teach. So it all, if you start off with a good piece of wood, you'll have a good end product. If you start off with a bad piece, well, you can only do what you can do. So, but I try to break it down into small fundamentals. Every teacher's, there's no set plan. Like, there's really not. Like, I looked at what Scott could do. I seen where he was at. I basically look at it and then determine what his strengths are, or what his strengths will be with tattooing versus what they won't be. And then basically I break it down to like the skeleton of what it needs. And then just hammer that until I get the result that I want. Basically, yeah, I'll start them off with small, real small, like dollar-sized drawings, because there's certain fundamentals within that tiny drawing that has to be there to make a good solid tattoo. There's got to be a certain amount of space versus the line weight so that you don't overpower the design with the blackness of the line weight versus the color within the fields. So it's about developing his eye to draw it in a certain way to where you can have longevity with the design. And then basically I just build up from there and teach the aesthetics and how things move and flow with the natural form of the body. So it basically starts off with something this big, and then it just moves to a bodysuit per se. Like it's mainly just learning. It's baby steps. You gotta crawl before you walk. So.
I've heard that some of your apprentices, they practice on like pig ears and things like that.
That's something that somebody turned me on to, and
I think it's a great idea for you. Human.
I did it a few times for fun, just to see what I was up with it. I thought it was about as close as you're going to get to actual skin. As far as like contours, concaves, thin skin, thick skin, fatty areas, areas with nothing behind them, basically just cartilage. And it's on such a small area to where you have to be able to adjust as you're moving your hands. So it makes for a quick learner.
The gentleman in the back, did you want to ask your question? You've been trying to ask for a while.
You don't have to worry, Mike. I'm a lot like this guy is.
Okay.
So. Yeah. I should preface this. I'm Brett. I've actually worked for Chris for 4.5 years. I just recently resigned. I'm leaving for quite a while now, but I'll be back eventually. My question is for Ron. You mentioned earlier, very, very beginning, about Paducah, Kentucky, having built their art district. Do you know what kind of turnaround it took in order to see any kind of larger effect in the area? Was it a month, a year, 5 years? Do you have any kind of data on that at all?
I really don't know for sure, but I know it wasn't a month or a year. If I had to guess, I would guess it was more like 4 or 5 years. But the city was dedicated to it, and it wasn't long after they made the decision that they saw that there were things starting to happen. So it wasn't like it went for a year and nothing happened. It was, there was some progress. I don't have all the details on that.
So it's not like it was, even though it may have started very slowly, there was progress, and they took notice of that.
That's right, and my impression is that from talking to people from Paducah was that the city made the decision that they were going to do it, and they stuck with it. They didn't a year later say, this doesn't seem like it's working, so we're going to throw it away.
Thank you.
Listen up. First of all, I have kind of a general comment and I have a question for Chris. I've lived in Alton my whole life, and I'm a homeowner here in the neighborhood. And I find myself more often than not, I spend a lot of my income in Edwardsville. The main drag in Edwardsville is a lot of restaurants and different shops, behind Edwardsville. If you notice that there's like 3 tattoo parlors on the main drag in Edwardsville, all within 2 blocks of the courthouse, and they certainly don't seem to be hurting anybody's business, That's my comment. My question for Chris is, can you explain to me the zoning deal? How come can't have a tattoo shop on this corridor of Broadway, but, it's okay to have a tavern on every other corner.
I don't fully understand it myself. Like I say, everything that we do stays within the building. It's not a noise pollution. It's not a unruly smell. It's basically stereotypes. You're gonna have people hanging out front. Well, I mean, isn't that a sign of life downtown? Isn't that what the downtown area was built to do, is so that people can walk down one side of the street, window shop, and skip across to the other side, and walk down the street, maybe stop, have a conversation with somebody, hang out on a bench, just enjoy the day hanging out downtown. I figure that addresses the loitering thing. As far as the bikers, the drug addicts, the surly people, or whatever else, I can't control public. If that type of public wants to come to this establishment, are you gonna tell them they can't? If 30 bikers pulled up and parked across the street and walked in here and wanted to look at art, would it be no, sorry, I can't have that presence here. It'll make us look bad in the community, you might want to throw us out. I can't control who wants to come and visit my shop. Do I specifically cater to any group of people? No, I don't. I don't judge anyone. At least I try to make an effort not to judge anyone because of the line of work that I do. I don't have anything that I really hold real favor as far as tattooing goes. I feel if I make a connection with the person that I'm doing the tattoo for, then that's what it's about. It doesn't matter if it's a dragon, a unicorn, stars, birds flying off a feather. It doesn't matter. It's not for me.
You couldn't have a tattoo shop around here, but you can have down there.
Did you have an explanation?
That's what that is.
I can partially explain that. I came here to listen, not to talk. But let me address, first of all, you mentioned the taverns. If someone petitions and gets a tavern into a particular zone, because they say they're going to have a restaurant and we also want to serve liquor. Pretty soon you don't have a grill that's serving liquor, you have a bar that occasionally has a peanut butter sandwich. And once that is granted by zoning, anyone can get in there, that zone, with a tavern. And that is the dilemma that the zoning board is put in. I have nothing against Chris. In fact, I think last time we were in formal meeting, I said there are better places. Sitting right next to you is one of the most eclectic coffee shops in the city of Alton. I've been there, I've enjoyed it, and it'd be an ideal place. You yourself, Chris, said not everyone should be allowed to have a tattoo shop. If that zoning is changed, any tattoo shop can come in. Your shop sounds very good, but anyone can come in and automatically set up a shop. And you yourself say they don't.
But then it's you determining whether or not they succeed in that effort. Am I correct?
No, I think I have no problems against yours. I think you've got a decent business. The thing that people are not familiar with is a half a block away from the proposed site. You can have a shop. You can set up a shop on this block. It's zone Z2. That shop down there is zone Z4.
Well, it's not a matter of just a random building that I'm trying to pick out. The building that I selected was selected for a reason, and it's because of the amount of space, the location, the amenities that that building has. If it was a matter of just throwing my business into a random building on Broadway, then we wouldn't even be talking right now.
I understand that. And I'm not, let me give a couple other personal examples. I've owned and operated 3 businesses. I had office equipment and supply. I could have gone into C4, no questions asked. I also had a drapery and window treatment business. I could have gone into C4, no questions asked. I have a heating and air conditioning business. I'm not allowed in that. You know, and it's a matter, this is not a matter of whether or not we like tattooing. To me, what was convincing in the original presentation is that it's a matter of respect for one another's property. And that's something that others who appeared there and explained how they were trying to develop an eclectic area and they were opposed. So it's a matter of respecting other property. Let me get a far extreme of zoning. You ask, why does art? You know, I've walked through the Louvre in Paris and seen the Venus de Milo, great, and then I walk up to this little bitty painting that to me doesn't look worth too much at all. Anyone know what that little bitty painting is?
Mona Lisa.
The Mona Lisa. It's just a little bitty painting. My biggest disappointment going in there. But also going in terms of the extremes of zoning. And the Leidse Straat of Amsterdam is the most, I don't know exactly how to describe it. You have a fancy jewelry store, and next to it, you have a sex toys and everything else. I mean, there is a matter of putting a continuity within a type of business. And I think Chris's business over the coffee shop area is perfect and ideal. It's an eclectic community, beautiful business, and I think it would be a better success there than here.
Yeah, I'm getting to all the merits of work on.
I do. Our property has had exemptions made to it to allow other businesses to survive. And from what I understand, Chris isn't asking for an exemption on the downtown as a whole, but on a specific building that he wishes to purchase. And I do understand that that exemption stays with the property even if Chris decides to leave. But no, it doesn't, because it did with when they did the bus permits. So I assumed it was the same. I do want to address something though, which is risk. Okay. Here you have a gentleman who is risking his already successful business, moving it into a rather decrepit area. He is investing his time, he's investing his money. He's an entrepreneur that is taking on all the risk. Okay? Local government, they have 2 choices. They can allow it or they cannot allow it. What happens if they allow it? Well, perhaps he'll succeed. Perhaps wonderful things will happen down here. He'll attract more businesses. Good for everybody. Perhaps the market will decide that, again, they don't want a tattoo shop down here because they don't like tattoos, even though they like biker bars and Johnny Vegas. I don't know. But you should let the market decide what they want. The aldermen, the people who are passing this, they have no risk. Their only risk is in saying no. They're alienating themselves from a general public who doesn't see this as an issue that should be particularly, a lot of people think this is a no-brainer. So aldermen are taking on this risk of alienating themselves from others when they could just say yes. Let the market decide whether they want Chris's business to succeed or fail in this area, because he's the one who's really investing the time and money in this.
One of the things that I think a lot of times artists get lumped into this sort of thing that's sort of counterculture, and that's somehow like anti-American. And I think America is built upon some principles that he's expressing. And I think one of the things that's so fundamental and like what I get so excited about America is this notion of being, you get to create and be something that you envision and you can create. And this is why our country is the best country in the whole world. It's because you can create something and manifest something that you believe in, and that there is market and there is a public and there are people that will say yes or no. And we need to trust that. I mean, it's just so fundamental to me, to what it is to be American. And part of this is this notion that we are going to grow or decay. That's just the law of nature. You grow or you decay. And part of what we need to do is encourage growth and trust people that we are going to grow. If we're going to grow, that means we're going to grow in a healthy way. Like, that's just, we're going to figure that out. We're going to self-regulate. And I just think it's just so, yeah, anyway, I don't want to go any further, but I really so commend him and what he's doing, and I just believe in it. I'm humbled by it, sitting next to him and this whole process. So, anyway, enough.
You've been going for a long time.
This audience is very much stacked on one side. So I'd like to just stand up and speak for a minute, because there's a lot of things being said up there that really escape part of reality a little bit. And Meredith, I fully appreciate you look at the economics and what happens in the Arts District, but it's not just about Chris. And this was supposed to be about what is art, not whether Chris's business should go down here, but it's kind of evolved into that. And a lot of things being said are just kind of missing a lot of points, I think. That it's not just about Chris, it's not just his investment. There are a lot of other people down here invested as well. And it does matter what happens in the community. Art is great, but there's a point where if someone wanted to have yard art up in their yard, that the neighbors don't like. I mean, that's part of why they have zoning. So zoning exists for a reason, and sure, you can have discussions to change zoning and whatnot, but it doesn't impact the other communities or the other folks in the community. It's not just about Chris, it's about the broader picture and what impacts certain things have, and trying to maintain some order to what goes in those districts and why.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, absolutely.
Did you put an offer in on the building that I'm looking at?
I did. What impact, what difference does that make?
I can take one.
That was like a year ago.
Hold on, I can take one more question, and this gentleman has been.
Actually, I don't have a question. That this whole discussion raised a lot of internal questions. I appreciate everybody's effort. It's like I'm living a chapter from Zen and the Artist of Motorcycle Maintenance. It all boils down to how you slice it. Now, I guess the question I have personally is, what do I need to do to help inform the City Council of Alton, Illinois as to about the land use change that's being proposed? That's it. I mean, this also kind of morphed into what is art, and also it morphed into what makes people fearful. And this is usually, I've been in the planning and zoning business for about 20 years. I mean, I've seen this I don't know how many times in how many places. Those folks that are elected to do a certain job. The city ordinance of Alton is very old. Zoning ordinances typically passed to keep the money in the pockets of white people and make sure the property values stay high. That's kind of the way it started. I mean, other than keeping the pigs out of the front yard and the horses from eating the neighbors' begonias and stuff like that. So, again, more questions raised than answered, but isn't that the result of something like this happening? I mean, it shouldn't be a stagnant process. It must continue.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming tonight. In the interest of time, we're going to close